So I haven't seen this, and I know you might be like, "Oh, damn IGN." Yeah, I know, but I want to look through this because I haven't seen this. I'm excited for the game, but also I'm a bit more just disappointed that there's no physical release. So I'm probably not going to buy this game for a while because there's just so much on the backlog.
Part of the original Alan Wake. It returns for the sequel.
By the way, if you've never played Alan Wake 1, you need to. You need to.
But the Stephen Kingisms look to be confined to the dark place.
This looks
The New
crazy.
York-styled nightmare cage the titular writer is trapped in. Out in the real world, or at least what seems like the real world, the domain of our second protagonist, FBI agent Saga Anderson, developer Remedy Entertainment has crafted a new collage from pieces of its favourite detective stories. The eerie shadows of True Detective, Seven, and The Silence of the Lambs creep through
wow, this
Alan
looks...
Wake 2's
Look at the
gorgeous
weapons.
digital depiction of the Pacific Northwest.
Okay. Yeah, it does look like John Wick. He does, actually. Man,
For this
imagine a
month's
John Wick
IGN
game.
First, I visited Remedy's
Welcome, Edgar.
studio in Finland to play Alan Wake 2. Across more than an hour of play, I experienced the entirety of Local Girl, the third chapter of Saga's story. Within it, I saw plenty of things that will make long-term Alan Wake devotees happy. Manuscripts still litter the world, as do blue thermal
It does look
blasts.
really
There are
good.
generators to power up, and your shadow-burning flashlight is still a fundamental part of combat. A pair of aging rock stars make a welcome return.
Thor and Odin are not here. They are old tricksters always.
There's so
sneaking
many
off.
games coming
But the
out.
shift
This can
from
wait.
nightmare horror to grisly detective thriller on Saga's side of
I
the
love
story
the
is the first
detectiveness
sign of
and,
the bold, sweeping changes that Remedy has made in its long-awaited sequel. Where the 2010 original was a relentless action game dressed in a Halloween costume, Alan Wake 2 is a full-bore survival horror. It comes complete with puzzles, exploration, backtracking, and a crime fiction library's worth of creeping dread. It feels like almost every element of Alan Wake's gameplay has been reinvented. And, from what I can tell thus far, it's all for the better.
I don't know about you, but I don't mind that we're playing as a new protagonist, even though I would like to just play as Alan Wake in an Alan Wake game. If the story's good and she's got a good character development, then why not?
Local Girl begins with Saga arriving in Watery, a town established by quaint but off-kilter. In these opening minutes, it's clear that Alan Wake 2 is unlike any other game Remedy has made before. There's no urgency as I wander down Main Street, chatting with the locals about a nearby trailer park, a lead in my wider investigation
the graphics
into
look
the cult of the
incredible,
tree,
though.
the story's looming threat. But while this may be slower paced than Remedy's previous action romps, it's no less weird. Everyone seems to already know who I am,
looks like a
despite this
beautiful
being Saga's
game.
first visit to Watery. And Artie is performing a rousing number at the local cafe. Yes, Artie, the janitor from Control.
It's a lot of
coffee
money.
here is
These
damn fine,
games
but
nowadays.
the atmosphere certainly is.
Oh, the road's flooded. But if you just follow this trail behind me, it'll lead you there.
A chat with entrepreneurial oddballs the Koskela brothers puts me on the trail of some spare keys for the trailer park, which are locked up in the gift shop of Coffee World, a local theme park. My journey there reveals that Alan Wake 2's world is built entirely different from its
Where's
predecessor.
Alan's
Rather
gameplay?
than the A to B shooting galleries that made up the original game, Watery is an open hub of snaking forest trails that can be freely explored and backtracked
God, I love
through.
the
This has
torch.
affected the scenario design. Across the duration of the chapter, my objectives take
Oh
me
my
back
gosh,
and
is it
forth,
30
discovering and revisiting locations
31
as new
days till
items and
Spider-Man
information
2.
expand the story.
I'll play along for now. I need
So
to
who is this? Who
If
is
the opening
this?
walk through Watery presents an air of silence, this later approach positions Alan Wake 2 close to Resident Evil, which has long used its police stations and villages in a similar
This
manner.
coffee is
That
taking forever.
relationship
I'm
is
taking my
further
time
emphasized
today,
by
guys.
the
Taking my
abundance of
time.
puzzles. As I get closer to Coffee World, I stumble across a number of containers,
Oh, Coffee
each
World.
locked by a brain teaser.
I'll tell you
with a
what, the
difficulty
game
level that
looks
scales in correlation
ridiculous.
with the rewards inside. I find a basic supply chest that's protected by a simple
Why
memory
no
minigame,
physical
but
damn
later discover
release,
a
man?
lockbox containing a powerful crossbow. Cracking it requires a close study of the
Ooh.
surrounding environment, as the
See, I
bolts
love
embedded
stuff
in
like
the
that.
nearby targets are clues to the padlock's combination.
Looks like they're tools of the trade.
This
I
is
appreciate
cool.
this more
Yeah,
involved and
Rafi, too
ambiguous
many
approach
games,
over
so
Resident
little
Evil's
time.
tradition of using an unusual item as a kick in appearance later in the chapter. The touch of Resident Evil can also be found in Alan Wake 2's combat encounters, which are framed from an almost identical
Yeah,
camera
it
angle
does
and
look
have
like
the
Resident
remake's
Evil
same
4, like,
snappy,
you know, the
stressful
over the
gunplay.
shoulder.
There's a grisly wound
Oof.
system too,
Oh,
that
wow.
opens up wet cavities with each gunshot. But that familiar foundation is blended
Oh,
with more
gosh.
original Remedy ideas. The dodge returns from the first game.
What's wrong with these
so ducking
enemies?
beneath hurled hatchets and melee swipes is
Oh
still
yeah,
part of the
Halloween,
rhythm.
guys.
And then there's the core of Alan Wake's DNA, the flashlight. Enemies are still cloaked in shadow, which must be burned away with the beam of your torch before bullets will inflict damage. It's great to see that unique mechanic return.
Pretty much impressed with this game.
Are a far cry from the relentless waves of enemies that populated the first game. Instead, moments of violence are spaced much further apart and involve just one or two assailants. A single foe is a significant, bullet-absorbing challenge. It makes fights feel scrappy and desperate, a hurricane of adrenaline where every round counts. The journey to Coffee World is host to
Oh,
just
wow,
two
so you
of these
can dodge,
encounters. It seems
lots of
like much of
shotgun.
Alan Wake 2's horror is built on the nervous anticipation of violence rather than combat itself. More enemies lie in wait between the rides and stalls of the fairground, but the real battle here is one of the mind. Because on Saga's side of the story, Alan Wake 2 is not just a survival horror, it's a detective game too. We are playing an FBI agent after all, and so
Interesting.
Remedy has built a small collection of bespoke systems to support that investigative fantasy. As I explore Watery, I gather an increasing pile of clues and evidence. Here you can profile people that you've met to learn more about them, and arrange clues on a case
until
board
dawn.
to make connections
If it's free,
and
that's
unlock
great.
new mission objectives. In the most simplistic terms, this is a match the card to the right location puzzle. Evidence that explains a person's motive goes in the motive section of the board, for example, and cannot be placed
off this
anywhere
wire, I
else.
don't
The
need
version of the system that I used for this preview
it will be
was,
fun, though. It will be fun on
unfortunately, a little
Halloween.
clunky. The interface and UI prompts were slightly unintuitive.
And thanks, Max.
Occasionally I found that evidence wouldn't fit where it logically should do, forcing me to just try every
All right,
option
Until
the click
Dawn.
stuck.
That's gonna
It
go
wasn't
on my
particularly
list.
Satisfying. But before I left the studio,